I'm Tim Vandergrift, winemaking advisor for Master Vintner. We're here tonight in Northern Brewer World headquarters, which is also the home of Master Vintner. We're doing a wine tasting. We've got a bunch of guests. We've got a bunch of great wines for our limited edition 2016, and we've got food to match with them. I'm looking forward to a great event and a lot of fun with my old friends. Thanks for coming along. Wine is a unique beverage in that it brings people together as friends and in harmony to share. And in that fellowship, I would like to propose a toast to you. Let's learn about wine so that we can share it with our family and our friends and enjoy it for ourselves. Cheers. Cheers. Master Vintner Limited Edition, what our limited edition program is once a year, we are going out and scouting for great grapes. Master Vintner has a line of kits. We've got a dozen varieties now, lots more coming, and those have to stay in stock year round. That means we need a guaranteed supply of grapes so we can continuously make the kits all year. And often when we are looking for grapes, we are offered some that are fantastic. They are grapes that we want to work with. They are of super high quality. They're from fascinating areas. They're just something that's going to be special, but they have a very tiny amount. They've got a measly 1,000 tons or something. And if we put those into the regular line, we would run out before the end of the year. We'd run out pretty quickly. And so we can't really afford to use those because people would be disappointed. They couldn't make a second kit. Instead of letting them get away, what we do is we sequester that lot of grapes, turn them into juice, and make them into kits, and we sell them on pre-order. So you have to pre-order them, get your name on the list, you get them, we make them all up, and when we run out, and they're gone. And that's why the pre-order, because if you don't ask for them first, we don't make enough and you don't get them. So we have 2 whites and 2 reds, and we release them in January, February, March, and April. They are the best wine kits that we can make. And the reason for this is kind of twofold. Number one, it's that pre-selection I talked about. But number two, because we don't have to inventory them for a full calendar year, and it's not even a full calendar year that we have to have that juice available. It's actually 18 months. Because when you make a wine kit from season to season, if you're making, say, a Cabernet Sauvignon, the harvest is going to be different in 2016 than it was in 2015. And you as a consumer have every right to expect that the wine kit will taste the same. It could be better, but it has to taste the same. So to overlap harvest differences, we cross-blend juices at the end of the season. So we need about an 18-month supply of juice all the way around. That storage costs money and it drives the cost of the kits up. But because we get these grapes, we turn them into wine kits and we're finished with them, none of those costs apply. So we pass that value on to you. These are actually some of the best value for quality wine kits that we can make. So we're starting off in January with the Lychee Cabernet Sauvignon. This is a grape that originates in Bordeaux in France. Cabernet Sauvignon, how many people here know Cabernet? Yeah, it's ubiquitous, it's very common. So this is a very structured wine. For those of you who have made wine kits before, this kit comes with grape skins. This is a skins in kit, and the extra skins provide a wallop of tannin. When I say tannin, does everyone know what I mean? So you know that it's a complex polyphenolic compound? Sure, okay. Tannin is that dryness, that swinging character at the end when you're drinking a red wine. Whites also have a little tiny bit of tannin in them. It's not as noticeable, but in a red, especially a big red like a Cab, that tannin gives it grip, structure, and length, and ageability. February, we're offering the Philosophie Chardonnay. Chardonnay is the most planted white grape in the world. There's an interesting reason for that I'm going to tell you about in a slide further down. In March, we've got the Chéri Merlot. Merlot is the friendly grape. It's also the most planted red grape in Bordeaux. Most people who know Bordeaux wines assume it's going to be Cabernet Sauvignon. But no, Merlot is planted there because it thrives in the cooler climate, in the Atlantic climate, right there in Bordeaux. Delicious flavors. And finally, we are finishing up with Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc is crisp, it is snappy, it's gotten extremely popular in the last few years. How many people here have had a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc before? Quite a few of you. those can be just absolutely electric. Some of them are actually kind of like licking a 9-volt battery. They're so zippy. This one's a little better balanced. So all of these wines come from France. If we look at these regions, these two different regions, Bordeaux and Burgundy, we think of France. France is this sort of roughly trapezoidal country sticking, beneath Belgium and Austria and above Spain across from England. And we think of France as a whole. France has only been France for a few centuries. Before, it was divided up into different duchies and kingdoms and protectorates and things like that. And it's got a really messy sort of a history. It's been settled for at least 6,000 years by Celtic peoples. The first people who settled France were actually the Celts. Then they were taken over by the Franks, and by actually a Germanic tribe called the Franks. And then, well, first the Romans, then the Franks. It's just a big jumbled up mess if you study French history. But there's two interesting contrasts between Bordeaux and Burgundy. First, Bordeaux is a major port. It's a major shipping port, while Burgundy is a landlocked little area. This has influenced them to a huge degree. Just have a look here. So this is France, and this is the Burgundy region here, this purple section. This is where Beaujolais comes from, by the way. And this is right in the center of, just off center of France. Paris is over here. This is the Loire region. And this is Bordeaux, and this is the Atlantic Ocean. So because they've got the maritime climate here, it keeps the weather steady, keeps it stable, it's not so wild and raucous, because the sea's always the same temperature. If you've ever lived at the coastline, you get some storms, but it's always a little cooler than it is inland in summer, and a little warmer than it is inland in winter. Right? This gets amazing weather. It has the Mistral, the big wind that blows through France. It also gets katabatic winds, which come off the central massif, and it will get huge hailstorms and heavy winds, and it's really hard on the grapes. So you have to be kind of tough to actually grow grapes there. And if we have a look here, I talked about it being a seaport. Because Bordeaux has excellent shipping routes around the world, they developed bigger and bigger vineyards and a greater amount of trade, so they could expand their vineyards and continually grow land and invest in them. And they got really big. They developed things called chateaux, which is just a big house and winery in the middle of the vineyard where they did all the processing. Burgundy, on the other hand, here's the top of Burgundy's at Dijon, comes down just below here, just above Lyon. It's inland, it's kind of mountainous. There weren't any really good roads until a few hundred years ago, so they didn't export much of the wine. So as a consequence, they were all small farms, all little grower, owner, operators. So their wines didn't go very far. They became very idiosyncratic, and due to French inheritance laws, when a father passes on, the land by law has to be divided amongst his sons. Unfortunately, the daughters get left out, but they divide the land between the sons. So if you had a 10-acre farm and you had 4 kids, you have 4 2.5-acre farms. By law, they can sell it to each other, but they can't not accept it as an inheritance. And if they sell it, then there's taxes. So nobody sells it. So as a consequence of this, there are wineries in France that have 1 row of vines. And some of them have half a row because Pop died and the 2 boys inherited it. So they get split farther and farther down. What this has led to is the contrast between a Bordeaux chateau, where they've been piling up money for 300 years, and a Burgundy shack. And in fact, well not most, but many Burgundy wines aren't even made on the farm. They gather the grapes, crush them, run them in a barrel, and then a negociant buys them and takes them away and bottles the wine someplace else, blends and bottles them. So there's a little bit of contrast between those two, but they both produce excellent wines for very different reasons. So now, tonight's wines. First, the La Vie Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon is the king of red grapes. It originated in France. It's actually a very recent grape. Cabernet Sauvignon has only been around for a few centuries. If you contrast that to something like Muscat, Muscat has been around for at least 10,000 years that we know of. It hasn't been crossbred, it hasn't diversified. But Cabernet Sauvignon, we know almost exactly when it occurred, a few hundred years ago. It's a crossbreed of a grape called Cabernet Franc and another grape, Sauvignon Blanc, which is a white grape. So as a consequence, you have this Cab Franc, which has, okay size, decent tannins, nice rich flavors, and Sauvignon Blanc, which has smaller berries and some good acidity. When they crossbred, the resulting grape has a unique advantage. Tiny little berries. Cabernet Sauvignon has some of the smallest berry size of any grape variety. It also has some of the largest seeds. And why this is important is in a red wine, half of the tannin comes from the skin. The other half comes from the seeds. So if you had a really big grape, like the size of a basketball, you'd have an awful lot of pulp compared to the amount of skin to give it tannin, to give it color, to give it flavor, to give it aroma. But the tinier it is, the more skin compared to the volume of pulp that you have. So Cabernet winds up being incredibly punchy, and the other half of the tannin comes from the seeds, and Cabernet Sauvignon has the biggest seed size ratio of any grape. So you get something that has huge tannins. My friend Jancis Robinson, who's a wine critic, once said that people who like to drink young Cabernet Sauvignon are the kind of people who like to play rugby, camp by sleeping on the ground, and eat raw broccoli. I don't know if I fully agree with her, but straight Cab, very young, is very tannic, very powerful. One of the good things about Cab is that it expresses terroir. Does everyone know what terroir is?
Yes.
Okay. For those who are a little unsure, terroir is a French word, and it means a sense of the place. So when you plant a grape in this particular vineyard, it's going to taste like a grape of that vineyard. If you plant the same grape in another vineyard, say you plant one in Australia and one in France, they are going to taste vastly different, although they are genetically identical. The grape expresses the sunshine, the rainfall, the geolocation, the soil minerals, the climate pattern. All these things influence what it's going to be like. And Cabernet is a touchstone for that. So it makes very different styles all over the world. I mean, anybody here who's had an Australian Cabernet Sauvignon versus a French Cabernet Sauvignon, you could swear they were different wines, although they're the same kind of grape. All that tannin also makes Cabernet Sauvignon very age-worthy. The more tannin and the more stuffing and the more structure a wine has when it's young, the longer it's going to be able to age and develop. Some French wine merchants actually have the saying, the worse the better. And what they mean is, the worse a wine tastes on bottling day, the better it will actually taste when it's ready to drink in the future. So, grape skins give this wine big tannin. The flavors are blackberry, blackcurrant, peppery, spicy. Is this blackcurrant country? Do y'all have blackcurrants around here? No? I have a blackcurrant bush in my garden, so whenever I'm writing a wine description or something, I'm like, blackcurrants, yeah, everybody will know what that is. But it's kind of, if you imagine a blackberry that got really angry and sort of sizzled to a short fuse, that's a blackcurrant. Tons of flavor, very packed and quite tannic. So it's got a nice dense concentration of flavor. It's got a very long finish. That finish comes from the tannins, and over time they'll develop and go on and on and on. Cabernet Sauvignon is one of the best grapes for matching up with oak. In order, it goes Cabernet Sauvignon, then Syrah usually, and then a few of the secondary grapes like Mourvedre there's a whole bunch of third tiers after that. But Cabernet can grab more oak than any other wine and turn it into more flavor. Whereas the amount of oak that would make a Pinot Noir taste like Chateau plywood, you put it in Cabernet and it's like, is that all you got? It'll soak it up and turn it into all these lovely vanilla-rich flavors. If you drink this wine young, and let me just take an aside. How many people here make their own wine already? Bless you. How many people here age their wine for at least 1 year before they drink it? 2? 3? Okay, for everyone who's got their hand up for 3 or more years, is there anyone here who answered 3 or more years who has less than 300 bottles of wine in their house? Okay. Here's the deal. I always get asked, is there anything you can do to make what can I do to improve my wine? Is there something that you can add to your wine to make it better? And I am here to tell you the secret ingredient, the magic ingredient. Time. If you age your wine longer than the person who made exactly the same wine, your wine is going to be better, simply by virtue of letting it evolve. Wine kits are designed so that you can bottle them usually within 4 to 8 weeks. But when they're ready to bottle, they're not necessarily ready to drink. And I always like to say, you wouldn't take a cake out of the oven and cut into it now. You have to let the cake cool and settle and let everything calm down to where it's ready to eat. Of course, I have taken a cake right out of the oven and eaten it right away, but sometimes you just need cake. But the longer you can wait, the better your wine is going to be. Which brings us to Vandergrift's first law of home winemaking. Winemaking consumption will rise to meet all available sources of wine. So very quickly, if you want to age some wine, what you need to do is for every batch that you want, make 2. The first batch you put in your shelf and where you keep your wine to drink. The second batch you put into cases and you tape it up really, really good. How good? So good that you can't get it open when you're drunk. Put it into the farthest place in the back of your cellar or in your storage area, put it away, and then write a reminder note in your calendar for 1 year. Bring the wine up. So at the end of the year, you go down and you pull that wine up. Now you're drinking 1-year-old wine. And you make 2 more batches. One to have up here and another to age for a year. And if you do that every time you make wine, eventually you will build up a great cellar of well-aged wines. Does everyone understand that? Everyone understand that I just completely told you a lie? If you make 2 batches, you're going to drink them, right? But the good news is you could make 4. So if you cellar this, if you drink it young, you're going to get the fruit. You're going to get that blackberry flavor. You're going to get a big, rich, fruity nose, and a ton of tannin. It'll be like sucking on a tea bag when it's very, very young, because it's got those grape skins in. How many people here have made a kit with grape skins? Okay, you know that there's an enormous difference. It's just a stride. Kits are great without the grape skins, but boy howdy does it make a huge impact. So if you drink this young, it's going to be grape skin-alicious and quite tannic. If you let it age, the complexity will come, the fruit will rise up, it'll be silky, it'll be elegant, you'll get a peppery note. You'll even get a character like cedar, like freshly shaved red cedar. And that's not a character from oak or anything, it's a character that's derived from the grape itself. It actually does that over time. Okay, so at cellaring, you're going to get that structure, pepperiness, the cedar. It's going to improve. This is a great meat wine. The structure and the tannin makes it tackle rich, oily things. The tannin cuts through fats and oils in your palate like nothing. And what that does is, you eat something really rich, like a piece of prime rib or a nice grilled ribeye or something, and you get that oily coating on your palate. Sip of wine cleans it off. You're ready for another bite, then another sip. Same for, by the way, do you have any people here who are vegetarians? Vegetarians? None at all? Okay. You often get left out when people talk about preparing red wine. If you want to do a grilled, like a brush a portobello with some olive oil and garlic and grill it, it's darn near the same thing because it's got that umami and the richness and the oiliness, everything that applies to people who talk about red meat wine. You can find an analog for it in the vegetarian world. Great with risotto, with roast lamb, and chocolate. How many people here have had red wine and chocolate before? Okay, you're well ahead of the curve. It's like, wait, I can sin with 2 things at once? The fat in the chocolate has tannins, brilliant pairing, and just a great way to kill an evening. That is our Cabernet Sauvignon. In February, we've got our first white, the Philosophie Chardonnay. Chardonnay is the king of white grapes. It is incredibly heavily planted. There is Chardonnay in every single wine-growing region on the planet. Even the very, very cold ones, like Champagne in northern France, where it's so cold, you basically can't ripen table wine. You have to turn it into Champagne because it doesn't ever get quite ripe enough. Lots of Chardonnay. Every single country goes Chardonnay. Why is Chardonnay so popular? because it's easy to grow. There are fussy grapes like Pinot Noir, which just, they're really hard to ripen. They're subject to rot, mold, mildew, all kinds of vine diseases. They don't yield heavy. They're a big pain in the neck. Chardonnay, poke that vine in the dirt and stand back before it hits you in the face. It's going to pop up. It's going to crop heavy. It's going to be easy to grow. It's a snap. So everybody grows Chardonnay. The interesting thing about that is everywhere you grow it, it does something different. It's a chameleon. You grow it in Australia and you wind up with these incredibly voluptuous, rich wines that have tropical fruit and butter and just layers and gobs of oily lanolin characters. You grow it in a more northerly climate, like where I come from in British Columbia, and it comes off a little bit more like a Sauvignon Blanc, crisp, dry, very structured, all green apple. So it's kind of a chameleon throwing off all these different characters depending on where it's grown. But it consistently produces excellent wines. Some of the most expensive white wines in the world, Merlot, Montrachet, Puy Fissé, Chablis, all these names are from France and from Burgundy. I have had the opportunity to taste some absolutely spectacular Montrachet before, and it was, I think at the time, just back in the 1980s, back when I had a real job, I think I paid $300 for this bottle, and it was worth every single penny. Chardonnay at that level is like a white red wine. Big, structured, heavy, just amazing. Our philosophy Chardonnay, it's unoaked. There's no oak in this one. So it's there to express the fruit, and it is pretty bold. It's ripe, it has intense flavors, it's got that green apple character that I mentioned, a little bit of fig, and fig is kind of a subtle thing. If you've only ever had dried figs, they're kind of heavy and sticky. But if you've ever had a fresh fig, they've got this wonderful, delicate flavor you kind of have to chase around. It also has some tropical characters, a little bit of pineapple to it, a nice ripe pineapple, a bit of pear, a bit of peach, all kinds of these wonderful white stone fruit flavors as well. It finishes with a fresh green apple citrus note and a little hint of almost a vanilla-y character, not coming from the oak, but coming from the grape itself. Fantastic food wine. Something fairly simple. You don't need to overload a Chardonnay. It works well with cream sauces because of the structure. So anything seafood. This is lobster thermidor, put back into the shell. I don't know about you, lobster is just about my favorite thing to eat. And with a really good Chardonnay that expresses that fruit, it is brilliant. It's also good with savory snacks. How many people here like to eat potato chips and drink white wine? Okay, only two. You are all missing out. Okay, are salt and vinegar chips a thing here? Yeah. Okay, because I've been to areas where you say salt and vinegar chips, and they're like, salt and what? The next time you have a really fruity white wine, something like a Gewürztraminer or a Viognier or a Riesling, an off-dry Riesling, go take my advice. Go buy a big bag of salt and vinegar potato chips, and you'll think to yourself, that tin guy must be nuts. You're going to take a chip, you're going to take a sip of the wine, and you're going to go, that's not bad. And 3 minutes later, you'll be doing this with the bag. I'm wondering if there's another bottle of wine. Brilliant combination. It's great with a good, salty, crisp, oily snack like that. In March, we've got the Chéri Merlot. Merlot is a very old French word meaning blackbird, because it's a small black grape. I used to sell grapes for a living, and the Italian customers would come in and they would ask for Merlot. Never Merlot, they say Merlot, because in Italian, in their dialect, Merlot meant songbird. And they felt it was a sin against God to eat a songbird. So they would rather pronounce it Merlot. And I never had the heart to tell them that Merlot actually meant songbird in Old French too. So. It's the most planted black grape in Bordeaux. Normally you think the Cabernet Sauvignon would be because it gets all the good press. But where Cabernet Sauvignon likes nice hot summers and good drainage, Merlot doesn't mind cold weather, a bit of rain, and wet feet. So you can plant Merlot in clay. If you planted Pinot Noir in clay, or something like Gewürztraminer in clay, the vine would be dead in 3 years. It never produced fruit. But you plant Merlot there, and it's like, hey, I got clay, yay, it's fine. So it can thrive. So every time there is some kind of vine failure, a frost, or an outbreak of mildew or something like that, they plant Merlot because it just doesn't mind sort of marginal condition. It'll thrive where Cabernet wouldn't. Now the thing about Merlot, and it had a huge rise of popularity in North America and was sort of the undisputed red for a long time. And that came about because of the television program 60 Minutes. Now, how many people here still watch 60 Minutes? Hey, both of us. That's awesome. How many people are super old like me and remember Morley Safer? Okay. 60 Minutes, for those who don't actually remember it, was a good in-depth news program in the day, and it was actually probably the best news program ever at the time. It was just amazing how much you could learn by watching it. And they did a segment on France and why French people died at a lower rate than North Americans. Because French people eat high-fat food, they hate exercise, they smoke cigarettes that smell like garbage fires, and they chain smoke them. They just love it. And they still haven't stopped. They still like their cigarettes. And they generally seem to live an unhealthy lifestyle, but they live much longer and have a much lower rate of atherosclerosis and heart disease than North Americans. So they did a study on this, and it turned out that one of the things that might have been an indicator was the consumption of red wine. 60 Minutes announced this, and the grape that was part of the study was Merlot. The next morning, every wine cellar in North America had the phone ringing off the hook. You got any of that wine I drink so I don't die? True story. So that's the French paradox, and that drove North American wine consumption, and specifically Merlot consumption, for a very long time. Now, how many people here, a little more current reference, saw the movie Sideways? So Paul Giamatti and that guy from the Wings show go on a road trip with wine, and the big thing in it is he won't drink Merlot. He says, I'm leaving if anybody orders effing Merlot. And that really turned people off of Merlot. But there's two things about that. Merlot sales actually fell off a cliff in North America. People got stuck with Merlot inventories. They had to drop prices and get rid of them, while Pinot Noir sales shot up. But there are two things about that drives every wine nut crazy. Number one, the reason Miles wouldn't drink Merlot was it reminded him of his ex-wife, and he cried. Not because he didn't like Merlot, he loved Merlot, he was sad. Number two, you remember at the end of the movie, for people who saw it, when he's sitting in like the Burger King, eating onion rings and drinking that incredible expensive bottle of French wine out of a styrofoam cup? And every time he took a belt of this, it was Chateau Cheval Blanc. And every time he took a belt of it, he just moaned. He was like, oh, it was so good. 70% Merlot. Okay, so now you know the secret of the movie Sideways. So it's got good, rich fruit structure. It's got boysenberry, it's got red fruits, it's got plums, it's got this wonderful black cherry, rich black cherry fruit character. And it's where Cabernet is sharp and tannic and forceful, this is rounded, it's softer, it's fuller. It's got this lushness to it. It's very tempting to drink Merlot on the young side. You'll get that black cherry character and a little bit, but if you let it age, it really unfolds. You'll actually get an aromatic complexity that will smell of violets in a really well-aged example of Merlot. The tannin softens further, and it takes on the ultimate quality for wine. You can gulp it like water. For me, that's the ultimate test. Is it a good wine? Well, it's interesting, it's structured, it's this, it's that, black and white, a whole page of descriptions. But if I take a sip and think, I wish this was in a pint mug, that's a good wine. Great with a wide variety of foods. I like with poultry, grilled chicken, also grilled meats. It'll work as well as cab if you've got something that's a little bit lighter. And here's a tip. If you eat your meat medium rare to rare, you need more tannin in your wine. You need a cab. If you eat your meat medium well to well done, you need less tannin. That's because the albumins, the proteins that are in the meat, will fight against tannins, and they'll soften a red wine. So a nice rare piece of prime rib needs a big tannic red wine. But if you're eating something that's grilled sort of medium, like a piece of flank steak or something like that, then a Merlot will do just nicely. Great with also tomato-based pasta sauces. Also with black cherries. If you've never had fresh like Bing or black cherries with Merlot, it is quite the taste combination. In April, our final wine, the Joli Sauvignon Blanc. So this is the wine that was a co-parent to Cabernet Sauvignon, along with Cabernet Franc. It goes into white Bordeaux, and white Bordeaux is the principal white wine that comes out of Bordeaux in France. You don't see a lot of it in North America. The French love it. It's popular in a few countries, but white Bordeaux is a hard sell here, so everyone just labels it Sauvignon Blanc. The thing about Sauv Blanc is picking times really influence the style of the wine. Now, I asked earlier about people who'd had New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. The reason why New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is kind of like licking a car battery is because they pick it so young that it's very high in acidity. As a grape ages, when it's very small, if you've eaten an underripe grape, you know that they're very tart, very sour. As it ages, those acids get converted to different compounds, so the grape softens and the fruit character develops and you get more complexity. New Zealand white wines, they pick the grapes super early to keep that zingy, zappy flavor going. If you grow it in another area, say in the Central Valley of California or in Australia, it ripens so hard and so fast, you wind up with much softer, rounder wines. And they can even be a little low in character. They tend to be a little neutral, they overdevelop. But you hit the sweet spot and you wind up with a wine that has that citrus character and all that other stuff going on with some ageability and some good balance. And it has huge aromatic complexity. Herbaceousness is one of them. So when I say herbaceous, it's kind of like the smell of fresh cut grass. Not a grassy flavor, but that note of fresh cut grass that is so appealing, or fresh hay in the field. It's got a little bit of that running through it. Another dominant note is often ruby grapefruit, red grapefruit comes off. Tropical fruits, things like that. It's very crisp, very racy, and it's got that nice lip-smacking finish to it, that nice hit on the palate. It's a fantastic food wine. I like it best with raw oysters. You get much oysters in Minnesota? Yeah. I've seen some oyster bars here, so I know you do, but I live in an area where there's actually an oyster farm 1.2 miles from my house. So I love oysters, and Sauvignon Blanc and oysters is just a treat. Also good with all kinds of seafood, great with salmon, scallops, roast chicken, and anything kind of tart. Anything you've used like a fruit salsa on, or you've got to squeeze a lime in. It's great with fish tacos. Also with tart cheeses like Chev, which is slightly tart goat cheese. Brilliant combination. Those are all the wines. Now let's talk a little bit about how we're pairing them with food. The idea behind food and wine pairing is that you are looking for a balance. You should have a wine that is balanced with your food. If you're eating something super heavy, like if you're having beef Wellington, you probably don't want Sauvignon Blanc because it's too light. The balance is weighted too much to the food. And if you're having something super light, like carrot souffle, you probably don't want a young Cabernet Sauvignon. It's going to overwhelm it. So you look for balance. Look for something that carries the same sort of inertia with it that the food does. You also want to enhance. As I said, if you're going to have something that's got a little squeeze of lime in it, you want to enhance that and lift it up with a good crisp Sauvignon Blanc. If you want something that's rich and fatty, the tannins in a cab will enhance that. You can counterpoint, you can complement. There's all these rules. If you look up how to pair food and wine, there's some lists that have 30 rules for pairing food and wine. I don't know about you, but I'm old. I get tired after reading the third rule. I'm done. Here's the real truth behind pairing food and wine. The classic pairings all happened because the wine was made in the village where people lived. The food came from the village where the people lived. So if you wanted to pair food and wine, you went and got a chicken, and you went and got a bottle of wine, and they're both from the same place, so you made coq au vin. Or you roasted a chicken and had a nice white wine with it. That's where every single classic food pairing for wine has come. So the real rule is, you can have any wine you want with any food that you want. There is no wrong wine in food. Never let anyone make you feel intimidated. If you like drinking ice cold white wine over ice cubes with a fudge sickle. If you like it, it's good. On the other hand, there are some classic pairings that work better than others, and some that just don't work at all. For instance, I happen to think that red wine and cheese is awful. I don't eat red wine and cheese. If there's cheese, I look for white wine or I drink beer. Because the wine has tannins, cheese has the fat, they hit together, and the cheese doesn't taste as good, and the wine tastes weird and flabby. So I never have red wine and cheese. White wine, on the other hand, has acidity, and the acid cuts through those fats beautifully, and neither one is diminished. They're both good together. So there's some classics which are a little counterintuitive, and there's some things, like I say, like Sauvignon Blanc and oysters that are just off the charts. But the choice is yours. Now tonight, we are going to be pairing Lychee Cabernet Sauvignon. Oh, and you know what? I need to take a step back. We need to just have a little sidebar here. Everyone has to understand, we are not drinking Master Vintner wines tonight. These are not Master Vintner's wines. The reason for that is the kits themselves have not been made. They physically don't exist. They have not been instantiated yet. So we could not have turned them into wine, aged them, bottled them, and gotten them ready for tonight's thing. So what we did was we went to a wine store and purchased commercial examples that are fairly close to what we want to achieve so that you could taste them and pair them with our food pairings. Now, there's something you need to keep in mind. These are only, just wonder if I'm late for class. These are only commercial wines. Ours will be much better. And I mean that sincerely. The thing about commercial wines is that often they are highly rigidly structured for certain reasons. These are all French wines to mirror the French grapes that we're using in our kits. So they're going to be seemingly a little more structured, a little drier in some cases, a little more aggressive than our kits will be. I guarantee 100% that you will like our kits better. Promise it. Is everyone good with that? Okay, awesome. So with Lychee Cabernet Sauvignon, we are serving mini beef empanada. Empanada is just, you know what? Empanadas are like, do you have pierogies here? Yeah. Empanada is a Mexican pierogi. Okay? Beef, lightly spiced, seasoned, wrapped up in a little pastry crust. Absolutely spectacular. It's a little bit rich. There is some oil in that, so it's going to go well with the tannins. And also the beef is going to go well with the tannins. It's going to soften the wine and round out the flavor. We are also serving it with a 70% cacao salted chocolate. How many people here have had chocolate and salt together before? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Have you had the salted chocolate with the red wine? Okay, then you know it's fantastic because salt blocks acidity. So the red wine's acid seems lower and it seems fruitier, a little bit sweeter. It's not any sweeter, nothing's happened. But the sugar in the chocolate pulls that back, so it fights against the sweetness. On the other hand, the tannins in the chocolate and the tannins in the wine come together in a tannic crescendo, so it's going to drive the fruit flavor of the chocolate. 70% cacao chocolate actually has a fruity note to it. It's really complex. There's a huge dynamic going on. So when you taste that, what you want to do, take a sip of the wine, take a bite of the chocolate, then take a sip of the wine, and just enjoy that roller coaster. For the Philosophie Chardonnay, we are serving some lemon garlic shrimp. Lemon garlic shrimp, like I always like to say, is if you cook anything in enough butter and garlic, it tastes like butter and garlic. Throw in the prawns and it's spectacular. The shellfish proteins and the sort of rich umami. Everyone know what umami is? Umami is savory. It's one of the primary tastes. Sweet, sour, bitter, salt, umami. Does anyone know how many tastes there are? 19. You can perceive, and it was news to me the first time I heard about it. You can perceive certain minerals, like calcium, through the calcium channels. You can perceive certain fats. There's all kinds of weird tastes that they're classifying now. And it may be even higher as far as I know. But umami is one of the 5 primary tastes. And it's savory. So umami is kind of the difference between a raw piece of meat and a grilled steak, or a plain piece of bread and a piece of toast. It's not the cooked nature, but it's that savoriness that it takes when it takes that on. Does that make sense? So the prawns have a ton of umami, which works incredibly well with the Chardonnay, the crispness of it. And the butter works well with Chardonnay as well, because Chardonnay really does go against the buttery flavor perfectly. We have a second one, and it's chips and dip. So how many people here have had sour cream and onion dip with their chips? Very popular where I'm from as well. So we've got a lovely roasted onion dip. And by the way, the caterers have done a knockout job. So these things are absolutely delicious. Anyone getting hungry yet, by the way? Yeah. Too bad, still gonna talk. The salt works against the acid, and it'll highlight the flavor of the wine, because salt and acid occupy the same calcium channel on your taste buds. So it's gonna drive the fruit. And the creaminess goes really well because the acid's going to cut through the creamy on your palate. So you'll get that rich mouthfilling, and it'll be cut by the wine. And with the Sherry Merlot, we have a Moroccan meatball and provolone stuffed mushroom. I don't know if it looks like this. I'm eager to see it. I did a Google search for a picture so I could show you something. And I had to ask, is it a Moroccan meatball and a provolone stuffed mushroom? Or is it so we worked it out. It's a mushroom with that stuff inside. That's going to be a ton of complexity and flavor. Moroccan flavors are heavily spiced, so you can expect those sort of Mediterranean North African characters, and that's not going to phase the Merlot at all. And provolone is a nice soft rounded cheese, and the mushroom is going to provide umami again. Mushrooms are very high in umami, so it's got that savory character. The wine is going to appear much richer and softer and fruitier after that. We also have Black Forest Cherry Cake Shooters. I don't have to explain that to anybody. Now, this is important. This is crucial. I want you to do something for me when you taste the Sauvignon Blanc. We're serving it with fresh chèvre made by Larry Janke. Larry's over there in the corner. He made the cheese. He did, all by himself, brought it tonight. Chèvre is a goat's milk-based cheese. It is lightly soured by lactic acid, and so it's tart. So what I want you to do is, in this order precisely, get the wine, get the cheese, sip of the wine, think about the flavor, taste the cheese, sip of the wine again. You will find that it alters it radically. The wine will suddenly seem sweet, almost like a dessert wine. Like super rich, because the acidity in the cheese and the fat is going to block the acid in the wine, and it's just going to seem absolutely as though you're drinking a sweetened wine, when a second ago it was crisp and normal. Next, get the honey. Taste the wine, taste the honey, taste the wine again right away. The wine will seem like that New Zealand stuff, almost like licking a battery. The honey will take all the sweetness out, the acidity will come up to the fore, and it will be crisp and tart and highly structured. And you'll be surprised at just how sort of rigid, structured, and full it is. Everyone got that? Now this is a classic exercise. Wine merchants in Burgundy have a saying. They say, buy on apples, sell on cheese. If you're walking into someone's place of business to buy wine from them, you have an apple. You eat an apple and taste their wine, because it'll take out every flaw. Once you get that apple in your mouth, the malic acid in it is going to show off every single little bump and lump in that wine, and you can argue them down in price. If you're going to sell wine, give the customer a piece of cheese, because it's going to cover up a whole host of flaws, and they'll never know what hit them. So I want you to do it all that way. All right. I just wanted to reiterate, remember, these are not Master Vintner wines. Ours will be much better, so keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about how to taste wine. Tasting breaks down into see, swirl, smell, sip, suck, and swallow. What we want to do is see first. So we're going to look at the wine, and we're going to look at it to assess color, clarity, and hue. So when we look at a wine, what we want to do is not this. We don't want to do this. If I am looking at a wine to assess it, I know that I am going to hate this wine. This wine is going to be terrible, because there's a cameraman in it. Don't do that. Instead, pick a background, something white or neutral. I've got a table here. And turn the wine on its, you know what, this glass is a little too full, excuse me. So you don't need a big sample. And the reason for that is when you turn it on its side, you get a thin layer of wine right here, right? And that way you can look through it and get a much better idea of what you're seeing. When it's like this, thick layer, opaque. Turn it on its side, you get a good look. So I'm looking for color, clarity, and hue. We'll just dispense with clarity first because all wine you're ever going to be exposed to these days is going to be perfectly clear. Finding agents from the kits, they work great. Anybody here filter their wine? No, you don't, because you don't need to. Your wines are perfectly clear, right? All the commercial wine you'll ever be exposed to will be perfectly clear. So we don't really need to worry about that. If you buy 100-year-old port, or you're buying, you know, the 1952 Latour, it'll have some schmutz in it, and that will be unclear. But if you're buying 52 Latour, what are you doing here? I am not that good looking. You could be at home drinking 52 Latour. The next two things are color and hue. White wines range in color from water white, very pale, to dark golden yellow. As a very generalized rule of thumb, the lighter the wine is, the lighter the flavor. The darker the wine is, the heavier, the richer, more intense the flavor. That has to do with both grape varieties and ripeness. Very young Sauvignon Blanc often has water white with a greenish tinge to it because it's so young. Whereas an aged Chardonnay that's been in oak barrels for a long time can be a deep golden hue, and aged Riesling, like a Trockenbeer or Schlese Riesling dessert wine, can be amber. And that's a general rule of thumb. There's exceptions, but generally darker is usually a little bit heavier in flavor. Extremely aged examples of some dessert wines can go brown, but normally brown in a white wine is a flaw. Now in reds vary in color from very pale, almost pink for some Pinot Noir based wines, all the way down to a deep, inky, purpley black. Black is my shirt for a few very heavy examples of reds. Again, the rule of thumb, lighter color, lighter flavor, darker color, heavier flavor. This is not entirely true all the time. There's a wine called Dolcetto d'Alba that's very dark and has a heavy flavor. There is some French Pinot Noir. I've had one called, well, it's not important, but I've had a few French Pinot Noirs that are very dense in flavor, but not just sort of off red. So it's not necessarily hard and fast, but if you get a look at it and think, well, this is a fairly dark red wine, I should expect some fairly heavy flavors. Now, hue in red wines. When red wines are young, they are purpley red. As they age, they go true red or even a bricky red. That's not damage. That's not the wine going bad. When red wines are young, they have two kinds of pigments in them. They have red, but they also have blue. And from what I remember of finger painting in kindergarten, red and blue together make purple. But the blue pigment's unstable. After a few years, the blue pigment combines and falls out, and you're left with a true red. So it's not going bad or spoiling, it's progressing through its natural age. So when you look at a red wine, say it's fairly dark, and look at the edges, it's got a real purpley character, it's pretty young. It's still quite youthful. So you can expect it to have that urgency of youthful character. If it's a true red or even verging on a bricky red, that means it's very well aged and will have a very mature character. Everyone got that? So the second thing is we want to sniff. You want to swirl your wine in your glass. These are pretty good. If you've only got a small amount of these are great tasting glasses for swirling. They are really efficient. If you've got bigger glasses with a big stem on them and you're not, good with swirling, because I'm a professional. I mean, I can swirl without any danger to any patrons here. If you have trouble with that, just set the glass down on a tabletop on a flat surface, and you don't move it in a circle. You move it just back and forth in a little line, just a little, very tiny movements, and it'll swirl right away. The reason why we're swirling is we want to knock off some of the low-weight molecular compounds, some of the aromatic compounds, so that they enter the glass so that we can smell them. You want to stick your nose in the glass after you swirled. You want to sniff really hard. The reason why you want to sniff hard is for turbination. Turbination is when the air goes through your sinus cavities, it speeds up and swirls around. And the higher the speed with which the air goes through your nasal cavities, the more information it delivers to your brain. This is why dogs stick their head out the window. It's like high-speed internet for dogs. So you don't want to take tiny little timid sniffs. That's not going to do anything. You really have to get a honking good sniff on to tell what's in the glass. And the first time most people try this, they're startled. They think, oh, I can't really identify wine, you know, I know what I like, but I can't really smell all those differences, all those fancy descriptions Tim used. Tim got those fancy descriptions because he snorts his wine. Just like this. Black cherry, blackberry, black currant, there's a nice sort of a fresh greenness to this too. And there's a hint of flowers, there's a hint of, almost like gentian. Wow, that's really nice. This is the, I think this is the Cabernet Sauvignon. Well, I'm pretty sure it's the Cabernet Sauvignon. After about 3 or 4 sniffs, you will reach olfactory accommodation. You'll get overloaded by it. Get some fresh air and you're ready to go again. Okay. So the next step is to taste, and to taste you take a very small sip, like a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon and a half. Hold it in your mouth, so just behind your teeth, just in front of your tongue, just right there. And then you want to pucker your lips like you're going to whistle. Don't whistle. Instead, you want to smooch and take air in. You want to, but don't, because you get wine in your lungs. You want to just do little short, kind of like fish smooches, like that. And what you're doing is you're blowing air, pulling air through the wine so that it drives the aromatic molecules to the back of your oral cavity where your brain, your sense of smell can pick them up and deliver them to your brain. This delivers a huge impact of flavor. The first time most people try this for reals, they're amazed at how much more flavorful wine can be. If you just take a sip and swallow it, it's good, and wine is wonderful, but you can really pick out a lot more flavor by doing this technique. So, after you've done that, after you've done the slurping the air through, swallow and stop dead. Wait. Think about how the wine is changing on your palate as time passes, and think of those changes, and just sort of feel how the wine evolves as it warms up and gets more complexity. So. Fabulous. The tannins are softer than I would have expected for something that had that much red color, that much purpley redness. It's very smooth, lots of that really nice blackberry character, and kind of a lovely, unexpected, a sweet fruit note that comes up above the strong tannins. It's a very lovely wine. Okay, those are the wines of Master Vintner Limited Edition 2016. Remember, you have a great deal if you order tonight. You'll get 10% off 2, 10% off 4, plus a Vintner's Reserve kit of your choice to take home this evening. Hold you until the limited editions come in. And that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. We're going to be doing, just got a few announcements, and then we'll be going straight to the tasting. Thank you very much for coming out. Thanks for listening now.
You know, it's the funniest thing is the first DVD got and the first wine he made was with the speaker tonight with Master Vintner. So he saw that online and it was like, oh, we gotta go.
I really enjoyed it. It was kind of fun to meet different people that were doing the same thing that we do, you know, making our wines, and you know, you get some pointers and tips.
I really like them all. I'm more partial to reds. My wife is more partial to whites, but for some reason tonight I really liked the whites.
The shrimp was really good with the Chardonnay, and it's like that was a mental note to be able to do that going forward.
Did you try the Sauvignon Blanc with the cheese?
Yes, I did that. Wine, cheese, wine, just like you said, and it totally changed the way the wine tastes. It was like,
swear it was a different wine.
Yes. Pits are great. They're so easy. The instructions are fabulous. I mean, when we were sitting here trying to figure out which one or two we were going to get, we just get all four.
You know, Tim had mentioned the grape packs. And any time we can get a wine with a grape pack, there's so much, they're bolder, they're crisper, it's the tannins, I love them. This has really been the best one yet. It's a nice limited crowd. You have a lot of space and a lot of really good, knowledgeable people here.
No, this is a great setup.